Hey guys, it's Martha. This is our small group time, and I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. Instead of doing two separate small groups, one for Sparkies and one for TNT, I'm just going to do one large small group. First will be Sparkies, so if you are TNT, you can go do jumping jacks, run around the house, whatever. I mean, outside, not inside, because your parents don't want you to run in the house anyway. And then I'm going to do the small group for TNT. So real quick, for the Sparkies, let's review what we did last week. Now, I've had one person call in or video me her verse. Now, if you want to just say it to your mom and dad, maybe you're video shy, that's fine. Say it to your mom and dad. Mom and dad, they can have two helps on this verse, small helps. And if they say it, you just email me, send me a text, private message, whatever, and let me know that they did that so that I know when I get ready to give my prizes when we get back that I'll know who did what. But I would love to see your faces. I do miss those bright, shining faces. All right, so last week we were going to review, we did John chapter 1, verse 1, and it said, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." John 1:1. And remember, we talked about this was the fulfillment of what God had promised. God had promised to send a Messiah. He promised it all through the Old Testament. The whole Old Testament was pointing to this one major event, and that was that Jesus Christ would come. He was the Word that this verse talks about. The Word made flesh. And so when we're talking about in the beginning was the Word, we're talking about Jesus, the fulfillment of the prophecy, the Messiah. Jesus is the Word that is mentioned here. So when someone tells you, "Oh, Jesus was just a man, he was just a prophet," now maybe they don't talk to you about that now, but they will as you get older. You're going to hear that, and you can remember this verse. John 1:1 says, "No, he was more than that. He was God in the flesh." It says in John 1:2, that's what we're doing this week. John 1:2 says, "The same was in the beginning with God." It's a pretty simple one. So on Christmas Day, we always celebrate Jesus' birthday, right? We don't know when his birthday really was, but that's the day that we've chosen to set aside, December 25th, and we celebrate Jesus' birthday, and we eat a lot, and we get presents, and it's fun, and I think Christmas is a great holiday. But before the first birthday of Jesus, before Jesus was born into this world, he already existed. And that's what this verse says. It says the same was in the beginning with God. What was in the beginning? The Word, Jesus. So Jesus was in the beginning. When the very first verse of the Bible says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth," Jesus was already there because he is God. Just like the last verse said, "And the Word was with God, and the Word was God." He is God. And so this tells us that the Word was in the beginning with God. John 1:1. Let's say it together. John 1:2, I mean. John 1:2. "The same was in the beginning with God." And so you guys can work on that. And if you haven't said your first one, say that John 1:1 and say John 1:2. It's really not hard. Those aren't hard verses. Okay, now Sparkies are dismissed. They can go run around the house. And now it's y'all. Now, Jaden, don't turn off that television, that video. I know how you are. Okay, so in our book this week, in your TNT book, it's actually the dreaded review day. That's right. On page 187 in your book, you're going to find all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of your verses that you have already said, or some of them you've already said. Maybe you've said all of them, I hope. But again, you don't have to send me a video. I would like for you to send me a video. I want to see your faces. However, if you are more comfortable, if you're video shy and you just want to say them to your parents, they can have two helps for each. And for this, I'm going to say for each verse. I know I'm not supposed to, but that's what I'm going to say anyway. Because some of these are kind of hard. And if your child has trouble and cannot memorize these verses for whatever reason, I do allow them, if they're having trouble, they can use the first letter system, which means, like in the first one we're doing is Luke 19:8. So they would put on a piece of paper or whiteboard L and then S, B, B, T, K, T, C, and so on, the first letter of each word, and they can use that just to help them get through. But they do need to, if they're stumbling, if they're not able to get through, then don't give them, let them study it. I know these kids and they know how to memorize. So I would like you to all be able to say these, and I think you can. I know you guys, and I think you guys are way smarter than you like to pretend sometimes, Jaden. But anyway, so we're going to start with the very first one from this group of sections, Luke 19:38, saying, "Blessed be the King that cometh in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest." Luke 19:38. Now this, of course, if you can see the picture, this was from the triumphant entry, from the day that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. And when he came in, people were excited. They believed that Jesus was going to be king, was going to free them from the rule of the Romans, that he was going to be the king on the earth right then. But that's not what Jesus came for, and we're going to see that in another verse later on. But so everybody was excited. They were pulling off their coats and laying them on the ground. They were taking palm branches and laying them on the ground for the donkey to walk on. They were so excited. Of course, they didn't stay that way, and it wouldn't be long before they would turn on him. But this is Luke 19:38 again, saying, "Blessed be the King that cometh in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest." Luke 19:38. Okay, the next one is Mark 10:45. "For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many." Mark 10:45. Now you'll remember that this one was the next week in our book, and this one talked about when Jesus was at the Last Supper with his disciples, and he ministered to them. He got down and he washed their feet, even though he knew that he was getting ready to face a horrible death. He knew that one of them was about to betray him, and one of them was going to deny him, and most of them were going to run away. But he didn't take any of that and say, well, they don't deserve it. Instead, he ministered to them. He served them. And so this was the next verse, Mark 10:45. "For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many." And Mark Mark 10:45. So that's your next one. And then I don't think you can see this picture very good, but Luke 22:41 through 42. "And he was withdrawn from them about a stone's cast, and kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done." Luke 22:41 through 42. This is right after that the meal that we just talked about in our other verse, where Jesus ministered to them. Now he's gone into the garden, and he leaves some of his disciples in one place, some of them a little closer, and he goes off just a stone's throw, it says, and he kneels down and he begins to pray, and he asks his Father, if it's possible, can you take this cup from me? Because remember, he was getting ready to do one of the hardest thing ever. He was going to be beaten and spit on, and terrible things were going to happen to him. And then they were going to nail him to a cross, and he was going to die. And he could have stopped it, but he didn't want his will to be. He didn't want just what the part of him that didn't want to hurt wanted. He wanted what God wanted, and he knew that the only way for us to be saved was for him to go to the cross, and so he did that willingly. And so this is the verse, while he's in the garden, this is what he says to his Father. Luke 22:41 and 42. "And he was withdrawn from them about a stone's cast, and kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if thou be willing, Remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. Luke 22:41 and 42. And the last one we're going to do this week, I split it up into 2 weeks because there's just so much to do. And I know it's just a weird, the way we have to do it online and stuff. So I just did 4 this week and we'll do 3 next week, okay? Ephesians 5:2, and walk in love as Christ also hath loved us. And this should say hath instead of hat, and hath given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling savor. Ephesians 5:2. Remember, we talked about that sweet smelling savor. That sounds weird to us, but that was from the Old Testament when they would give the offerings, and it made a sweet smelling savor to the Lord. And what that means for us is that we want to be pleasing to the Lord. We want to give our lives to the Lord and be pleasing to him, just as Christ sacrificed his life for us. And so this one, again, this was the week that we talked about Jesus actually going to the cross and dying and sacrificing himself. Ephesians 5:2, and walk in love as Christ also hath loved us and hath given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling savor. Ephesians 5:2. Okay, guys, so those are your verses. You've got 4 this week. However you want to do it, if your mom and dad want to listen to you, as long as you really know the verse, they can just write me and say, Martha, my daughter said all 4 verses, or however. And if you say them word perfect without any help, without your first letters, let me know that too, okay? And or if you really love me, you'll send me a video. So either way, send me a video, send me just something that says I did this. All right. I miss y'all, and I'll see you soon. I hope to have another video or 2 up either today or tomorrow. Okay. Bye.